Welcome everybody, my name is David and today I'm just going to walk you through the process of painting my version of Bob's Frozen Solitude. So here we go. I'm using my own custom-made white base coat. Basically just a version of liquid white that I made myself using titanium white paint and resin gel. Now resin gel is very similar to Gamblin's solvent-free gel, except that it is made by Weber and not Gamblin. And I think it dries a little faster as well, but otherwise it's the same stuff. So now the black I'm using here is actually a combination of burnt umber and ultramarine blue, which I have mixed together into this black, and I'm going to use that to start painting in the sky. I've decided to break up the parts of the painting here and put them into separate videos so that we don't have a 2-hour-long video. Actually, I don't know how long it's going to be, but I'm going to break it down into compartments. So we'll do the sky, then we'll do the mountains, then we'll do the foothills, so on and so forth until we get to the cabin. Cabin in the snow will be last. So this is basically just more or less a careful version of how Bob painted the sky. I don't necessarily like the way he did the clouds, so I just decided to take the liberty of making my own sky for the background of this painting. I'm just using a 1-inch brush, just a 1-inch flat landscape brush, and I'm just putting it in there very meticulously. A lot more attention to where I'm putting things than what Bob did. And I think I've said this before in some comments to some people, but I very seldom use anything larger than this 1-inch. I know we've got a 2-inch, and I think you can also get a 2.5-inch. But I find the 1-inch brush to be perfectly adequate 90% of the time. So I'm just using it here to get some direction in the clouds, making sure to keep the corners darker so that we have some more light in the center. Just blending it out, and eventually I'll get to the clouds. But it's just a matter of going back and forth, reloading the brush by tapping it, as you saw me do there. Just tapping the brush in and getting it loaded. Not too much, but just enough to go ahead and drop those darker areas in there. And just reinforcing the shapes here. I decided that the corner there needed to be a lot darker, and of course it looks awkward unless you bring the darkness down a little bit, so that's what I did here. And now for the clouds. Got the larger of the two fan brushes. I think this is a 6. And I'm not really going too deep into how to load the brushes here. I'm just more or less sharing how I painted the thing. But you do need to make sure you have a lot of paint on that brush. Otherwise, what I'm doing here doesn't really work. This is more of a walkthrough than a training video anyway, so I'm just going to save a lot of time and skip right through to the parts where I'm actually doing something interesting. I know there are times when a lot of blending and meticulous brush strokes are going on that can get a little boring to watch, so I'm going to cut most of those out. Bob usually goes in with the 1 or the 2-inch brush here at this point and smooths everything out, but I find that I can do it with the fan brush perfectly well. If you know how to work the brush, you really don't need to soften anything. Although I do actually later on go back over and soften the clouds up with the flat. So I'm kind of contradicting myself, but to drop the clouds in there, I generally don't grab the 1-inch brush. See, I can just blend the whole thing together just like that with a fan, and it works just fine. This can also be done with a filbert brush. I chose not to use a filbert this time because, well, I don't know. Just grab the fan. I didn't really put much thought into it. I had the fan sitting there and I just grabbed it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't really matter. I could do the same thing and get the same effect with a filbert brush. It just gives a slightly different look to the clouds. But I'm really getting in there and blending the paint into the canvas, and you could do this with the landscape flat brush, but I don't know. I think the way that this is just the way I've always done it, and I think it just works great, so. See, the landscape brush can't really get in and do what I'm doing right here. It's a little too big. I suppose if my clouds were bigger, it would work. But you can get these wispy little effects, especially on the, like I'm doing right here. These wispy little effects there on the sides. They look really good. And blend them in. More circles. See, these clouds are mostly just composed of a bunch of little circles all mushed together. Mushed and blended. It's kind of like making little commas or little half moon shapes, little crescent shapes with the corner of the brush there. Now for some more on the other side. Now the light source in the painting, as I've determined, is on the left. So when I'm putting the clouds in there, I have to make sure that the left sides are the most pronounced, with the brightest values. Just so that it looks like I don't have two suns in my painting. Still using the fan. I haven't switched brushes yet. This whole thing has been that one fan brush. I think I may have washed it out once because it was starting to get a little gunky, but that's not a rule or anything like that. You just kind of get a feel for it. When it starts feeling like it's too globbed up with paint, just clean it out. It's kind of a logical thing, if it feels gloppy, just towel it off, clean it off, wipe it out, who knows, whatever. Now these little wispy effects are great. I mean, this is a little bit more of an advanced technique right there, but if you can pull it off, here comes the 1-inch brush. This is just to soften. Very, very subtle amount. I'm hardly doing anything here at all. I think that just about wraps it up for the sky. So we'll move right along here. yeah, just soften it up and move on.